Behind the red carpets and perfect interviews, some stars left behind stories of rude behavior, ugly scandals, and reputations their public image could not protect. Today, we look at Hollywood names accused of arrogance, cruelty, and chaos. Stay until the end and subscribe to Hollywood Legends Remembered. Ellen DeGeneres. In 2020, Ellen DeGeneres' Be Kind image started falling apart in public. For years, viewers saw dancing giveaways, celebrity interviews, and a host who sold daytime television as warm and harmless. Then, former staffers began describing a very different atmosphere behind the cameras. The backlash grew after comedian Kevin T. Porter asked people online to share stories about Ellen being mean. Soon, the discussion moved beyond awkward celebrity encounters. Former employees of the Ellen DeGeneres show alleged a toxic workplace culture involving fear, racist comments, and mistreatment. Warner Media opened an internal investigation, and 3 senior producers later left the show after workplace misconduct claims. How does a show built around kindness recover when the people behind it say they felt disrespected? Ellen apologized to her staff and later addressed the controversy on air, saying she took responsibility and wanted a new chapter for the show. But the damage was already public. The problem was not only the allegations, it was the gap between the cheerful brand millions watched and the workplace stories coming from people who helped create it. The show ended after its 19th season in 2022. Ellen remained famous, but the old image never returned untouched. After 2020, every smile dance and be kind message carried a different weight. Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard had the talent to be one of Hollywood's most reliable dramatic actors. Hustle and Flow brought him an Academy Award nomination crash, put him inside a Best Picture winner, and Empire later gave him another major television spotlight. But the conversation around Howard has often drifted away from the acting. One of the biggest career turns came after Iron Man. Howard played James Rhodey Rhodes in the first film, but Don Cheadle replaced him in Iron Man 2. Entertainment Weekly reported at the time that the change involved salary issues, a reduced role, and dissatisfaction behind the scenes. How does an actor go from being part of Marvel's first major hit to disappearing from the franchise completely? Howard has also kept attention on himself through unusual interviews and public comments. In a recent podcast appearance, he even suggested that a past confrontation with producer Joel Silver may have hurt his Hollywood relationships. People reported that Howard looked back on his own aggressive posture as something that pushed industry figures away. That is what makes his reputation so complicated. He is not remembered only as difficult, and he is not remembered only as brilliant. Terrence Howard became both a gifted actor with memorable performances and a man whose off-screen statements, conflicts, and unpredictability often became louder than the work itself. James Corden. In October 2022, James Corden's friendly late-night image ran straight into a restaurant scandal in New York. Viewers knew him from The Late Late Show and Carpool Karaoke, where he laughed with celebrities and turned pop songs into viral TV moments. But the Balthazar incident pushed a very different version of his reputation into public view. Restaurant owner Keith McNally accused Corden of being extremely rude to staff and briefly banned him from Balthazar, calling him one of the worst customers the restaurant had dealt with in years. Reports said the complaints involved 2 separate visits, including one dispute over his wife's omelet. How does a host known for charm become the face of a customer service nightmare overnight? The story spread fast because it matched older rumors people had shared online about Corden being dismissive or difficult away from the camera. Corden later addressed the controversy on his show, admitted he made a rude comment, and said it was wrong. McNally also said Corden apologized, and the ban was lifted. James Corden was not ruined by one restaurant argument, but the incident changed how many people read his public personality. After Balthazar, the cheerful karaoke host also carried another label, the celebrity whose manners became the headline. Jesse James. Jesse James was known to TV viewers through Monster Garage and West Coast Choppers before his marriage to Sandra Bullock made him part of mainstream celebrity news. He sold a rough tattooed motorcycle shop image, but in 2010 that image turned from bad boy into public disgrace. The scandal broke shortly after Bullock won the Oscar for The Blind Side. Reports of James's infidelity became national news, and in an ABC Nightline interview, he admitted he had cheated and said he had lied his way through the marriage. Bullock later moved forward without him, and the public sympathy stayed firmly on her side. How do you recover when the person America feels sorry for is the wife everyone already loved? The damage grew worse when a photo surfaced showing James wearing Nazi-related imagery. He later said it was meant as a joke and denied being racist, but the explanation did little to repair the public reaction. Jesse James did not lose attention after the scandal. He lost the kind of attention that could help him. His name stayed famous, but mostly as a reminder of how quickly a rebellious image can collapse when the behavior behind it looks careless, cruel, and impossible to defend. Reese Witherspoon. In April 2013, Reese Witherspoon's clean Hollywood image ran into a very public police stop in Atlanta. Her husband, Jim Toth, was being arrested on suspicion of DUI when Witherspoon got out of the car, argued with the officer, and was arrested for disorderly conduct. The moment became famous because it clashed hard with the polished image audiences knew from Legally Blonde, Walk the Line, and years of red carpet respectability. According to the police report, Witherspoon asked the officer, "Do you know my name?" and warned that he was about to find out who she was. That line followed her because it sounded like pure celebrity entitlement, the kind of sentence people remember even after the legal case is over. How does one bad night damage a reputation built on being smart, charming, and controlled? What helped Witherspoon was that she did not drag the scandal out. She apologized publicly, said she was deeply embarrassed, admitted she had one drink too many, and said she had been disrespectful to the officer. Later, she pleaded no contest to disorderly conduct. The arrest did not end Reese Witherspoon's career, but it gave the public one rare glimpse of entitlement behind the sweetheart image. After that night, she recovered because she owned the mistake instead of pretending it never happened. Jared Leto. Jared Leto moves between Oscar drama's comic book roles and arena rock with 30 Seconds to Mars. He won Best Supporting Actor for Dallas Buyers Club, then stepped into Suicide Squad as the Joker, a role that turned his reputation for commitment into a bigger conversation about boundaries. During the film's publicity reports described Leto sending strange, Joker-inspired gifts to cast members, including a live rat bullets and a dead pig. At the time, he framed the behavior as part of creating surprise and chaos around the character. But for many viewers, the story sounded less like dedication and more like a co-worker making the set uncomfortable. When does intense acting stop looking professional and start looking like a problem? The story became even messier because some of the most extreme claims were later disputed. Leto denied sending the most graphic items and said much of what people read about the situation was exaggerated. That did not erase the public reaction because the legend had already taken over. Jared Leto remains talented, successful, and hard to ignore. But the Suicide Squad period changed how many people saw his method acting image. What once looked like fearless commitment started to feel to critics like a star confusing intensity with permission to cross lines. Jesse Eisenberg. In 2013, Jesse Eisenberg sat down with Univision reporter Romina Puga while promoting Now You See Me, and the interview became more famous than anyone expected. Viewers already knew him from the social network Zombieland and sharp, nervous characters who talked fast and cut hard. That same energy felt very different in a real interview. During the exchange, Eisenberg teased Puga about writing notes on her hand, questioned the way she referred to Morgan Freeman, and called her the carrot top of interviewers. Puga later said she felt humiliated while many online viewers called him rude and condescending. When does awkward humor stop feeling clever and start looking like disrespect? The clip followed him because it was uncomfortable to watch. Eisenberg later pushed back against the reaction, saying he felt the moment had been mischaracterized and that his style was misunderstood. But once the internet decided the interview looked mean, the explanation could only do so much. Jesse Eisenberg was never destroyed by that one interview. He kept acting, writing, and directing. But for people who already found his public manner intense, the Romina Puga clip became the example they kept returning to, the moment where his dry humor looked less like wit and more like arrogance. Naomi Campbell. By the late 1980s and 1990s, Naomi Campbell was already a runway force. She worked with major fashion houses, helped define the supermodel era, and became one of the most visible black models in an industry that often resisted women who looked like her. Vogue has described her as a major figure in fashion history and a mentor to younger models. But Campbell's public reputation was never only about the runway. Her temper became part of her celebrity image after several legal and workplace incidents. The most famous case came in 2007 when she pleaded guilty in Manhattan court to assaulting her housekeeper with a mobile phone. Reuters reported that she was sentenced to 5 days of community service and ordered to attend anger management classes. How does a fashion legend keep her status when the headlines keep turning back to her behavior? The phone incident was not the only accusation attached to her name. Reuters reported that Campbell had been accused by multiple employees of hitting or assaulting them, which helped build the image of a star whose glamour came with real fear behind the scenes. Naomi Campbell's career survived because her impact on fashion was too large to erase. Still, every story about her discipline, beauty, and influence now sits beside another image, the supermodel whose walk was legendary, but whose temper became just as famous. Julia Roberts. During the making of Hook in 1991, Julia Roberts' reputation took a hit that followed her for years. She was playing Tinkerbell, but behind the scenes, reports said the crew gave her the cruel nickname Tinkerhell. The timing was rough. Roberts was under heavy public attention, and even Steven Spielberg later described it as an unfortunate time for them to work together. That story clashed with the image audiences knew from Pretty Woman. Bright smile, romantic charm, and the kind of screen presence Hollywood loved to sell. But the Tinkerhell label suggested something colder behind the fairy dust delays tension, and a set where people did not remember her as easygoing. How does a star keep a sweetheart image when crew stories start saying something different? The reputation grew again around I Love Trouble in 1994. Reports said Roberts and Nick Nolte did not get along, with sources claiming the tension was so bad that they sometimes played more to stand-ins than to each other. Roberts herself admitted during filming that they got on each other's nerves. Julia Roberts remained a major star, and these stories never erased her career. But they did leave a crack in the perfect image. Behind the famous smile, Hollywood remembered a sharper, more difficult side. Kiefer Sutherland. On 24, Kiefer Sutherland spent years playing Jack Bauer, the intense counterterrorism agent who always looked one crisis away from exploding. The role made him a television icon, but his real-life reputation also carried its own trail of legal trouble, alcohol-related headlines, and difficult workplace stories. The biggest legal hit came in 2007 when Sutherland was sentenced to 48 days in jail after a DUI arrest while he was already on probation from an earlier drunk driving case. Reuters later listed him among celebrities who served time, noting the 48-day jail sentence after the 2007 arrest. How does an actor famous for control on screen become known for losing control off it? His behavior also became part of Hollywood gossip after co-star Freddie Prinze Jr. publicly criticized him in 2014. Prinze said working with Sutherland on 24 was so unpleasant that it made him want to quit acting, calling him deeply unprofessional. Sutherland's team pushed back by saying he enjoyed working with Freddie and wished him well. There was also a 2009 incident where Sutherland was charged with misdemeanor assault after allegedly headbutting fashion designer Jack McAuliffe in New York. Kiefer Sutherland's talent was never the issue. The problem was the pattern around him, a respected actor whose off-screen intensity sometimes became almost as famous as Jack Bauer himself. Tobey Maguire. When Spider-Man made Tobey Maguire a global star in the early 2000s, audiences connected him with Peter Parker's quiet, awkward, decent image. That is why the stories around his private poker circle felt so strange when they reached the public. The transcript points to a sharp contrast between his friendly superhero image and the colder reputation described by some people off-screen. The biggest source of that reputation came from Molly Bloom, who ran high-stakes poker games later dramatized in Molly's Game. Vanity Fair reported that Bloom's games included famous names such as Tobey Maguire, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Ben Affleck. Bloom described Maguire as demanding and humiliating, including a moment where he allegedly tried to make her bark like a seal for a poker chip. How does the actor behind one of Hollywood's most beloved superheroes become remembered for a story that feels so mean-spirited? Maguire was also connected to legal fallout from those poker games. Reports said he agreed to pay money in a settlement tied to winnings from a player later convicted in a Ponzi scheme case, though Maguire was not accused of running that scheme. Tobey Maguire's career was not destroyed by the poker stories. He still returned to major attention with Spider-Man: No Way Home. But for some fans, the Molly Bloom account changed the way they saw him. Less innocent Peter Parker, more guarded Hollywood player. Edward Norton. By the time Edward Norton played Bruce Banner in The Incredible Hulk, he had already built a reputation for intense, serious performances in films like Fight Club, American History X, and Primal Fear. He was respected, but in Hollywood, serious can turn into difficult very quickly. The Marvel situation made that reputation louder. Norton starred in The Incredible Hulk in 2008, but when the Avengers came together, Mark Ruffalo was announced as the new Bruce Banner. Norton later said he had wanted a darker, more serious Hulk story, possibly over 2 films, but Marvel moved in a different direction. Reports around the split also pointed to creative and financial disagreements. How does an actor go from shaping a superhero movie to being replaced before the team-up even starts? Norton's reputation has often followed the same pattern: brilliant actor, sharp mind, but heavily involved in the creative process. Some people admire that control, others see it as interference. In a studio system built around speed budgets and teamwork, too many strong opinions can become expensive. Edward Norton kept working and kept proving his talent. But the Hulk recasting gave Hollywood an easy label to attach to him: gifted, demanding, and maybe too hard to manage when the movie belongs to a bigger machine. Russell Crowe. In 2005, Russell Crowe was already an Oscar-winning actor when a hotel incident in New York turned his temper into a global headline. Audiences knew him from Gladiator, A Beautiful Mind, and The Insider, but suddenly the conversation was not about acting. It was about a phone thrown at a hotel employee. The incident happened at the Mercer Hotel after Crowe reportedly became angry because he could not make a phone call to Australia. He was first charged with more serious offenses, but later pleaded guilty to reduced misdemeanor charges. An Australian report said he admitted using a phone to assault a hotel employee and was fined. How does one public outburst turn a respected actor into Hollywood's favorite example of bad temper? Crowe later apologized, and the civil lawsuit connected to the hotel employee was settled out of court. Still, the story followed him because it matched a wider reputation for being intense, confrontational, and hard to calm down. Russell Crowe's talent was never the question. The problem was that his off-screen anger sometimes became loud enough to compete with the work itself. After the phone incident, even his best performances carried the shadow of a man Hollywood admired, but also feared provoking. Oprah Winfrey. In 2023, Oprah Winfrey faced a wave of backlash after she and Dwayne Johnson launched the People's Fund of Maui following the devastating wildfires. They committed an initial $10 million to help displaced residents, but the public reaction turned sharp when 2 extremely wealthy celebrities also asked ordinary people to donate. For critics, the issue was not charity itself. It was the image: Oprah, a billionaire with property ties to Maui, standing in front of a tragedy and asking the public to help fund relief. Online, many people felt the request sounded tone-deaf, especially at a time when regular families were already struggling with rent bills and inflation. How does a woman known for generosity become accused of asking too much from people with far less? The story was more complicated than the backlash made it seem. The Associated Press later reported that the fund gave out almost $60 million over 6 months to about 800 adults affected by the fires. Still, the damage to Oprah's public image showed something important. Even a real relief effort can look wrong when the messenger is richer than almost everyone watching. For some viewers, Maui turned Oprah from a symbol of empathy into another billionaire who misread the room. Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf moved from Disney Channel's Even Stevens into blockbuster fame with Transformers, then spent years trying to rebuild himself as a serious actor through films like Honey Boy and The Peanut Butter Falcon. The talent was obvious, but the public noise around him kept getting louder. His reputation took another hit during the drama around Don't Worry, Darling. Olivia Wilde said his process did not fit the safe, respectful set she wanted. LaBeouf pushed back and said he left the film himself, not that he was fired. Either way, the dispute added to the image of an actor whose intensity could become a problem for the people around him. How many chances does Hollywood give when the comeback keeps arriving with another controversy? The most serious damage came in 2020 when musician FKA Twigs filed a lawsuit accusing LaBeouf of abuse during their relationship. His legal team later denied the sexual battery and assault claims. The case was eventually resolved through a private settlement in 2025. LaBeouf still works, and some people continue to praise his acting. But his name now carries two conversations at once: the performer who can be raw and compelling on screen, and the off-screen behavior that made many in Hollywood hesitate before calling him again. Lady Gaga. By the time the Monster Ball tour was filling arenas, Lady Gaga had built a pop image around spectacle discipline and total devotion to performance. The costumes, vocals, and stage concepts made her look unstoppable. But one lawsuit from a former assistant showed how exhausting life could become behind that machine. In 2011, Jennifer O'Neill, who had worked as Gaga's personal assistant, sued for unpaid overtime. She claimed she was expected to be available around the clock while working for Gaga's touring company and sought about $380,000 in compensation. The Guardian reported that O'Neill said she was constantly at Gaga's side during that period. When does loyalty to a superstar turn into a job with no real off switch? The lawsuit described duties that sounded less glamorous than the world outside imagined: schedules, meals, outfits, supplies, luggage, and personal requests at all hours. Courthouse News later reported that Gaga and her touring company settled the overtime claims before trial. Lady Gaga's career was not destroyed by the case. She remained one of the biggest names in music and film. But the assistant lawsuit left a different image beside the glitter: a superstar workplace where creativity, pressure, and control could blur the line between dedication and exhaustion. Jennifer Lawrence. In 2016, Jennifer Lawrence went on the Norton show and told a story from filming The Hunger Games catching fire in Hawaii. She joked that she had used sacred rocks to scratch herself while wearing a wetsuit and said one rock came loose and rolled downhill. The joke landed badly. Many viewers saw it as disrespectful to Hawaiian culture, not harmless celebrity humor. Before that, Lawrence had built a public image around being unfiltered and relatable. She was the Oscar-winning star of Silver Linings Playbook, the face of The Hunger Games, and the actress people praised for acting less polished than other celebrities. But the Hawaii story showed the risk of that persona. What sounds funny in a talk show chair can sound careless when it involves someone else's culture. When does relatable stop being charming and start looking tone-deaf? After the backlash, Lawrence apologized publicly. She said she meant no disrespect to the Hawaiian people and understood why the story was not received as funny. The controversy did not end Jennifer Lawrence's career, but it changed how some people heard her jokes. The same looseness that once made her seem refreshing also made her look reckless when the subject deserved more respect. Christina Aguilera. Christina Aguilera came out of the late 1990s pop boom with a voice that separated her from many teen idols around her. She won the Grammy for Best New Artist, later moved through pop, R&B, Spanish-language music, and television, and became familiar to younger viewers again as a coach on The Voice. But her public image has also carried a diva reputation, and one story made that label much louder. In 2014, reports claimed Aguilera had an angry moment at Disney California Adventure after a Mickey Mouse performer went on break and could not take a photo with her. UPI reported that she allegedly insulted the performer and used the classic celebrity line, "Do you know who I am?" How does a singer with real talent become remembered for one entitled sentence? The story was never a career-ending scandal, but it stayed online because it fit the public idea of a superstar losing patience when told no. For critics, it made Aguilera look less like a powerhouse vocalist and more like a celebrity who expected the room to bend around her. Christina Aguilera's voice was never in question. The problem was the attitude people believed they saw behind the fame. After the Disney story, the word diva did not just mean glamour anymore. It meant difficult. Lea Michele. On Glee, Lea Michele's Rachel Berry was ambitious, talented, and impossible to ignore. Off-screen, that same intensity became part of a much darker conversation in 2020 when former co-star Samantha Ware publicly accused Michele of making her first television job feel miserable. Ware said Michele subjected her to traumatic microaggressions on the set of Glee. The accusation came after Michele posted in support of Black Lives Matter, and it quickly brought other former cast members into the discussion. Variety reported that Ware later described the experience in more detail, while other actors from the show also signaled support or shared their own complaints. How does a performer known for playing the bullied outsider end up accused of making others feel small? The backlash moved fast. HelloFresh ended its partnership with Michele, and she later apologized publicly, saying her behavior had hurt other people and that she needed to listen and learn. The apology did not erase the damage, especially because the accusations fit years of rumors that Michele could be difficult behind the scenes. Lea Michele kept working after the scandal, including a major stage comeback in Funny Girl. But the Glee accusations changed how many people viewed her. The voice was still powerful. The reputation around it was no longer clean. Charlie Chaplin. By the time The Kid reached theaters in 1921, Charlie Chaplin had already turned the little tramp into one of the most recognizable characters in film. The hat cane walk and small mustache made audiences laugh, but Chaplin was also writing, directing, producing, and controlling much of his own work. Behind that comic image, his private life brought scandals that never fully disappeared. The transcript focuses on Chaplin's relationships with much younger women, and that was not just a rumor. The New Yorker notes that he married Mildred Harris when she was 17, Lita Gray when she was 16, and Una O'Neill when she was 18, while Chaplin was 54. How does a comedy genius become remembered not only for his films, but for choices many people now find deeply troubling? In the 1940s, Chaplin's reputation took more damage through a public paternity case involving Joan Barry and a federal Mann Act prosecution. He was acquitted in the federal case, but the scandal added to the pressure around him at a time when his politics were also under attack. Chaplin's films still changed cinema, but The Little Tramp's innocence never erased the harder truth behind the man: enormous talent, enormous power, and a private life Hollywood could not keep charming forever.